Hello, thanks very much for joining this webinar. I appreciate some of you are listening to this live, and we are trying to get this recording out literally just after the budget was announced. It's 2:31 on Tuesday, the 1st of October. For those of you listening live, thank you again. Just to mention briefly, my name is Nick Shaw-Lambert. I'm the Managing Director of a company called Alpha Wealth. We're a progressive financial services company based primarily in Cork with a small presence in Dublin. And I'm just going to spend 15 minutes going through not just what's changed in the budget today, most of which was actually announced days before. I think most of us knew yesterday a lot of the announcements that were just made. But I just want to talk briefly about what we can do to improve and best benefit from not just the budget, but also our financial position. So I'm going to fly through just a few slides, just some of the, I suppose, bigger ticket items. The cut to the universal social charge, we all knew, from 4 to 3% for those people earning between 27 and 70,000 a year. The increase in the threshold of 2,000 before we start paying tax at a high rate, which will now be at 44,000 for a singly assessed person. There are other reliefs, most of which were fairly minor. One of the bigger ones was this increase in the inheritance tax or gift tax allowance that not just a parent can give to a child, but also the other rates. And it's been made fairly clear again in advance, but I'm going to touch on that in a moment. Certain other things that are going to help primarily parents, or certainly those of which may need that, and again, most of which will be announced, and it's not really for the purposes of this forum that I need to go through them. You'll pick them up on the news, I'm sure, at some point, or indeed in the press. So really the main focus today is that we're going to all benefit, and this is talked about being a kind of a giveaway budget. It looks like the government are going to announce an election, we think sometime in the autumn. It has to be held before March, which is part of why I think they've announced these kind of one-off payments, which is not really going to ideally help us in relation to planning our financial futures. It's only just this kind of flash in the pan, as I'd call it. But the key things I want to get across today are, what can we do with the savings? Now, just before I do that, one of the key things that were mentioned, now this was actually announced 2 days ago, is that the government are going to bring in auto enrollment, it seems, on the 1st of September 2025. And this is quite a big thing. Now, we all expected it to happen in 25. We thought it might be early in the year. But the point is that it now gives us clarity to the fact that it's going to affect about 800,000 workers in Ireland, that they're going to be provided a scheme either through their employer or through this government, what's called auto-enrolled scheme. And we've done separate webinars, and our webinars can be accessed on our website, Alpha Wealth, where you can look at certain ones. I'm going to mention one or two that we're doing over the next number of weeks. But specifically in relation to auto-enrollment, if you are a member of a company pension, or indeed if you are an employer and is looking to make provisions, it's important to recognize that this scheme is going to run alongside that, and make sure that you're not going to fall foul of being automatically enrolled into the scheme. And again, this is something that I'd like to be able to explain. So getting back to the budget and how we're going to use the financial benefit, which is going to benefit most of us in the region of about 200 to 250 euros a month on average. The starting point, I'd say to everybody, is try and do a financial budgeter. It's something that is available. There's a lot of free tools available. This particular one is on our website. It's a really useful tool that allows you to get a really good handle on what income is coming to the household and where that money is going. And by virtue of that, and including making some adjustment for those improvements that has been announced in the budget, I think is going to help immensely. The key thing is to recognize that, let's say, for example, for that 100 euros that you may be better off by, if you put that into a pension scheme, you will benefit by a minimum of an extra 25 euros from the government. This is the tax relief that we get if we're earning less than the 44,000 a year going forward, or 166,000 euros, sorry, for those of you that are earning over what will be 44,000 a year. that's a huge advantage. So it's not just the extra €100 that may seem small. If you apply it to the right type of vehicle, and for most of us, we are trying to retire early and enjoy the later stages of our life. It's not necessarily about trying to build up a big pension pot. It's given us the ability to basically get to this point of what we call financial independence. And that's one brief example of how you can use the extra money we have. We often talk in Alpha Wealth about this lifestyle creep. We all benefited from the last budget in January, roughly to the tune of about €120 again a month on average. And most of us probably didn't even realize, don't mind actually applied that. And all I'm trying to do in this kind of short session is give you some indication about some of the things that you can do with the extra money that you may find that you have in your pocket. Firstly, by assessing it using that budgeter, and secondly, then by applying it to the right types of accounts. Ernst & Young, EY have a really good income tax calculator, and we'll provide the information to you for those of you that are registered, whereby you can actually do a very quick computation specific to your situation. It only takes about a minute to provide the detail, and it will give you an exact sense of exactly how much tax you should be liable for, and again, how you can put that money to better use. One of the key impacts on today that was announced in relation to the rental tax credit that was increased from 750 to €1,000 is Michael McGrath said a few months ago, and Jack has also mentioned this as well, the current finance minister, that over 50% of people have still not claimed for the rental tax credits that are eligible. So there's no point in the government making these announcements and us not taking advantage of them. So one of the things I would definitely encourage people to do is go onto the Revenue Online system, make sure that you have your profile set up. It only takes a minute or two, and start applying for the things that were announced today. Not just for now, but you can actually go back to up to 4 years. So 2 years when it comes to the rental tax credit, 4 years when it comes to the working from home allowance that we can apply for up to 30% of any relevant expenses. And I think it's certainly an opportunity for a lot of us to do that. Other things we can do with our money. Those of us that are looking to try and build up an emergency fund or save for anything in the short term, what I'm suggesting is that when you work out how much you're going to be better off by, and again, that should be roughly on average about 250 odd euros per individual based on the various reliefs that were announced today, you might want to put a bit more into your pension. You may want to save or build this, as I said, emergency fund. And what we're trying to do in Alpha Wealth is help you to apply that into those different pots and make sure you have the best account possible. On the screen there, I've just put up details of an account with one of the online banks called Trade Republic. It's one that I use myself. We have no bias in Alpha Wealth, but you can avail of a 3.5% gross interest of up to 50,000 in a regulated entity. And the benefit of that is that instead of you just, putting your money into the bank or post office, I spoke to people earlier who have their money in the credit union who pay 0% interest or 0% dividends. We've all become used to banks such as Revolut that a lot of us are using now, but that are advertising rates that are not anywhere near as advantageous as the likes of Trade Republic. Revolut, for example, will give you 2% without you paying them a fee. To get the 3.49%, you have to pay them €55 a month. But the likes of Trade Republic will provide that rate to you without any fee whatsoever. I just want to mention of certain webinars that we're providing, and this is one that's taking place on Thursday, the 3rd of October. So again, anyone who's listened to this on Tuesday the 1st, which is today, or indeed tomorrow, Wednesday the 2nd, there is an opportunity to log in to this particular one. Now, if you can't make the webinar, it's 1 o'clock on Thursday. Please do register, and we will send you the 30-minute video afterwards. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail around how you can use your finances, particularly in relation to the budget, and apply them and make sure that you're getting the most from your money. Whether it's a case of trying to help your kids through third-level education and using that money to that regard, whether, as I said earlier, putting it into something short-term for things that you're going to need to spend the money on in the next year or two, whether it's about putting it in towards your pension, whether it's with your company pension understanding how your pension can work more favorably for you. I really think it's a good opportunity, as I said, and this is a case of, registering for these at no cost to yourself. And what we're trying to do in Alpha Wealth is just impart some information. If anyone does have any questions, I'm more than happy to take them. I appreciate that this is a kind of a very short forum. And again, I'm more than happy for you to email me directly. My email address is very simple. It's just nick@alphawealth.ie. My colleague David Looney is providing a webinar for anybody who is in the possible prospect of being made redundant. That's on Tuesday, the 15th of October at 7 p.m. And again, all of these can be accessed through our website, Alpha Wealth.
So Nick, I'm going to jump in, sorry, here, just before you put up the business owners webinar, and just ask you a little bit about, so there was obviously changes to the USC and the income tax threshold. So
Yes.
USC went from 3%, or sorry, from 4% to 3%, and there was a €2,000 increase for the income tax threshold. What does that actually mean for people kind of on an annual basis or on a monthly basis? How much more money will they be taking home in their pay packet, really?
Well, as I said earlier, and again, it depends on how much obviously you earn, but let's say the average wage in Ireland is about 45,000 a year. You'll benefit from both of those tax cuts, which effectively is what they are. I suppose, again, if you use the EY calculator, it'll tell you exactly how much you're going to benefit from with these budget changes. You'll see in the newspapers over the next couple of days, they give these examples, whether you're married, single, divorced, with kids or without kids. And it gives a fairly reasonable kind of ready reckoner. I've already said earlier that roughly we're going to benefit by about 200 to 250 per month each, typically from January, which is when most of these changes take effect. You, depending on how many children you have, may benefit slightly more. Obviously, there's these slight adjustments that they're making, mostly in one-off payments to parents. There's a reduction in school fees and so on. But to answer your question, typically about 200 to 250 per month for most people that are listening to this call.
And the rent tax credit, can you kind of just expand on that a little bit? So it's gone up from 750 to 1,000. And for couples, that's increased also from 1,000 to 2,000, I think. Is that correct?
That's right. So effectively, it's been doubled. So it means that if you have a partner and you're both renting, let's say even in the same property, you can benefit by up to currently 2,000 a year from here on in. It was 1,500 prior to that. And it's something that is so easy for you to claim back on the Ross system, and yet a lot of people are still not doing that. So I think, again, it's just an indication for all renters out there to
And what
go
about
and
kids in
get
college?
ready.
If you have kids in college, can you claim this rent tax credit if you have children that are in student accommodation?
Yeah, so for parents who are paying accommodation fees for their children, you can benefit from a 20% rebate from the government. These are all things that are so easy to apply on the Revenue Online system. And for those of you not familiar, just set up your profile. It takes, as I said to you, less than a minute. And you'll see on a drop-down menu all of the things that you can apply for going back over 4 years. The biggest one, as I said earlier, was the claiming up to 30% on our light, electricity, heating, and phone bill usage, particularly for all of us that pretty much worked from home during the COVID period. And yet most of us still haven't done it. So there's no point kind of talking about the budget and complaining about what we may or may not have received from it. The key message we wanted to get across today is we are going to be better off. We need to, in some cases, go and apply for these credits. We need to put the money that we're going to be better off to use into those three different pots that I referred to earlier, the short, medium, and long term. I would advise people to do the financial budgeter once a year. I would encourage people to talk to a financial broker, whether it's Alpha Wealth or someone else. Get independent advice and see how you can best manage your financial position. Listen to some of these webinars. The one that I'm doing on Thursday the 3rd, talking about how you can retire early. I'm going to go into a bit more detail and really flesh out, including some of the things that we've benefited from today and what we're going to benefit on. And the last thing I'd finish on is to say that the Finance Act, which is going to be produced up from roughly up to the 10th of October. So somewhere between sort of 7 and 10 days from now, we'll give a little bit more detail. We were waiting for some announcements around pensions in relation to the pension cap, for example. Some people may have been listening out for. There was no mention at all. And the devil sometimes is in the details. So there may be one or two other things that may come out in the finance bill. But for now, as I said, this is a bit of a giveaway budget. Most of it was already prefaced prior to now. But the thing is, make sure that you are taking advantage of those reliefs. And in some instances, we have to go and claim them. So listen, thank you very much again for listening today. And as I said to you, anyone who has any questions, please do feel free to pop me an email. nick@alphawealth.ie will get me, but please do feel free to go onto our website. You'll get a load of free kind of tools that you can use, the EY Budgeter, for example, and I will be sending an email across to everyone who's registered for this webinar, who can pick up some of those, as I said, takeaways, and obviously in terms of things like the budget calculator. Thanks very much again, guys, and enjoy the rest of the day. Take care.